welcome back to the Dental Realist podcast. I am Dr. Ryder Waldron, one of your hosts, and I am joined as usual by Dr. Troy Stevens and Dr. Marcus D. Neff. Troy, how's it going tonight?
Going really well. Glad to be here. Got a really cool show ahead of us here today. Real excited about this topic.
Marcus, how are you doing?
Doing good. Just enjoyed a day of dentistry, and now I'm ready to relax with a good podcast.
Yeah, that's right. The soothing voice of Marcus D. Neff. All right, so tonight, guys, we got an email, and it's really quite a detailed and lengthy email from a listener this past week, and we asked him if it'd be okay if we use it for a topic on the show, because a lot of these questions, I think, are important to new dentists and future dentists, dental students, people like that. So we thought we'd just kind of break this down. So you guys ready for that?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So I'm going to read this. We're not going to give our listener's name out, but he's a second-year dental student, and he's planning on being a general practitioner dentist. He's been married for 5 years. He's got a couple of kids. He says, I am an avid reader of books, such as The White Coat Investor, and a listener of several podcasts, including the Dental Realist podcast. He says, in fact, it was this podcast that got me started on my business journey this last summer while working as a pedo dental assistant. So that's awesome. We're inspiring people, guys. How good is that?
Yeah.
This is the reason why we do it.
That's right. I actually have bought and read your book, So You Want to Be a Dentist, as well. I really enjoy your podcast and book and the advice you provide, and I'm looking for some specific guidance for my particular situation. So we thought we would answer this on a podcast rather than one of us taking some time and sending an email. We thought we could all give our opinions on some of these questions. So he's pretty specific about what he wants to do after dental school. He and his wife, they want to live in Pennsylvania or Virginia. He said he's going to leave school with about $300,000 to $350,000 in student debt, which is probably pretty normal right now, I would say.
Yeah.
He wants to go into public health right after school for about a year in one of the states to see if they really want to live there. And during that time, he's going to spend his days and his off days and his nights working on his business education, trying to find a practice within that area. He wants to be a private solo non-DSO doctor. He wants to find a high-producing office, $800,000 to $1 million, and then do a 1-year reverse associateship with the current retiring doctor. And wants to add implants and molar endo to his repertoire. We like to say that. Marcus likes to use a utility belt, but
yes, I do. Ace Hardware is my supplier.
So let me just go on with this, and then we'll get into some of the questions. He wants to have a nice home, $400,000 to $450,000 max, travel a couple of times a year. Says he and his wife are really frugal. They put some money into a Roth each month. Right now, they're living off a budget of $1,900 a month. They donate 10% of their income, and they want to invest and save some of the other. He wants to take home a net income of $300,000 to $350,000 a year, and wants to live within an hour to an hour and a half of a major airport, but not in a huge city. So, first question is, they want to know how realistic it is to find the above place in Pennsylvania or Virginia where they have one of the highest dentists to 100,000 people population ratio in the nation. So let's start with that one, Troy. How realistic is it to take home that kind of income? Because the three of us work in a pretty saturated area along the Wasatch Front in Utah and Idaho. So, Troy, what do you think? Realistic or no?
I think it totally depends on what he finds out there. To be flat out honest, I don't know the demographics of Pennsylvania or Virginia, but I do know that if you're battling against other dentists, it's going to be a little tricky to find the exact thing. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Depends on what you want to do. If the practice is already going, and that's pretty specific stuff to want to know. For an area that I don't really understand very much. But how's that for an answer?
Go ahead, Marcus. What do you have to add?
Yeah, so I mean, I think if you know where you want to live, you're going to have to be willing to make some sacrifices. For instance, coming back to southeast Idaho, I knew it was pretty saturated here. So I knew realistically if I was going to practice in a saturated place, it was going to be harder for me to have a really high income as a dentist. Maybe maybe not as high as some places in the country or some areas where it wasn't as saturated. Also, I think if you go to a saturated area, it's more likely that you're going to find practices that are involved in a lot of dental insurances and caught up in that, because to compete, they're all competing for patients. So they pretty much all start to move towards, competing with each other and competing for patients. And one way to get those patients is by signing up with every insurance plan known to man. So I think if someone's willing to maybe be flexible in some of those things, I mean, I think you potentially could find a practice in a not so populated area that's maybe doing really well or has the potential to even ramp up even higher over time. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that we just don't know, and we can't, get into specifics because we just don't know that area. But is it possible? I mean, maybe if you're super passionate about dentistry, if you're willing to make some compromises, if you're willing to give it some time, maybe. But it's going to be a real challenge if you're going to a generally saturated state, generally saturated area.
Can I clarify? Marcus got my brain thinking on something there, since I was kind of numb on that question. Just because I don't know Pennsylvania, Virginia, but Marcus brought up a great point of, if you are accepting insurances, if you're a PPO practice and you're planning on producing 800 to 1 million, you can probably plan on collecting about 600,000 to 700,000 of that. So that's going to be your number that you're going to be more worried
write
about.
off a lot.
You can produce $1 billion, but you're going to write off till whatever the insurance company deems worthy of giving to you, which is terrible right now in our environment. And so look at the collection numbers, I would say, more than the production numbers.
That's a good point. Yeah, so I actually looked up the average income of a dentist in Pennsylvania and Virginia. So the average in Pennsylvania was about 167,000. In Virginia, it was between 140 to 165,000, and the area that he was talking about in Lancaster, I'm not sure exactly where that is in Pennsylvania, but the average is about 145,000. So realistically, he's looking at having to make over double what the average is there. So that could be difficult.
Yeah, that
for
could
sure.
be.
Yeah. So just to get a little personal here, I mean, this practice that he's talking about, 800 to 1 million a year producing, I mean, that's about what my practice does. And I don't take home anywhere near $300,000 to $350,000. And I assume if it's saturated there like it is here, then it's probably comparable. So that would be tough, I think.
Yeah, take home specifically. Take home, I mean, man, taxes are going to kill you. If you start getting to where you're taking home 300 and 350, you're probably grossing 500 or more.
Yeah, you're probably, for sure. I mean, you figure if you want to take home, I mean, 500,000, if they took 30% of your taxes, which is on the low end, that would leave you with 350 left over, but they're going to get more than 30%.
So they're going to get at least 35% out of you at those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
So, you'd have to take home about 300 or about 500, or gross about 500,000, but that's assuming you produce 1 million and collect every dime of that. And that's just not realistic today in dentistry.
That's
unless
the dilemma.
Yeah, that is.
I think it's some people may be able to pull it off, but you got to be super aggressive. You've got to have a really solid business sense. I mean, you'd have to take some risks. There's a lot you'd have to do to really push it to that point.
Probably, like you're saying, Marcus, take some risks and maybe even go in fee for service.
Yeah.
And in my area where I am, that would basically, I would board up my windows. We have people that will leave my practice because it's $1 cheaper somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, literally $1. It's kind of ridiculous, but that's kind of the environment, at least out here, that I'm feeling. Like I say, I don't know the Pennsylvania, Virginia area.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's kind of similar to what we're dealing with here. So Well, let's talk. Oh, go ahead.
Something that I did like about some of the plan was, so first year out plans on working at I think it said community health center or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can speak to that a little bit because I was in private practice for about 12 years, something like that. Solo practice, started up, and over the last 4 years I've been working in a community health center. And one thing I would say, he mentions that he'd work there for a year while he's looking for a practice and kind of working on some things. One thing to consider is if you do a 2-year commitment to one of those places, right now anyway, and for the last quite a while, the National Health Service Corps will pay you $50,000 in student loan repayment. And that's no taxes, that's $50,000 direct to your student loans. So if you're going to do that, if you're saying I'm going to go work in a community health center, I'd maybe bump that from 1 year to 2 years, because why work there for a year and leave all that money on the table?
Do you have to sign for 2 years to get any of it, Marcus, or can you get 25 a year?
No, you have to sign a 2-year commitment, and then they send you the money up front. And then every 6 months, you have to verify that you're meeting the requirements of it. Basically, that you're a full-time dentist working at the community health center that was approved.
Okay.
And then after your 2-year commitment, you're done. I mean, there's no taxes, there's nothing beyond that. But I'm just saying, if you're going to go do that for a year, I'd do it for 2 years and get the $50,000.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we had some guys from our class that did that, and it didn't feel like at the time that it was something that I would be interested in. But looking
I never
back,
dreamed I would do it.
Yeah, but looking back, I mean, that'd be great to knock that much off your student loans, be able to get your speed up. You don't have to worry about running the practice. You just show up to work, basically. You're an employee and you get paid. And working at a community health center, you might get, you get a lot of experience dealing with bombed out teeth, extractions, maybe some endo, things like that. Yeah, right. Big fillings. And you wouldn't, and he even mentioned that he wouldn't get a lot of experience in cosmetic dentistry, but I don't know if, to be honest, I don't know how difficult cosmetic dentistry is. I mean, you prep crowns and put tooth-colored fillings in.
If you're getting into full mouth reconstruction, maybe you should take some additional classes. But just the general stuff is probably most anybody should be able to pick up.
Marcus, can you tell us a little. One of the guys, I know a couple of dentists that work over here at a health clinic that is here in the town that I'm in, and their frustration is that they don't get to see general stuff like we see a lot of. They, like you guys were saying, they do a lot of not root canals, but they do a lot of extractions and that kind of stuff. How many crowns would you say, compared to your private practice, would you do in a community health situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it depends really on the community health center, because like where I'm at, I was the first dentist to come in there and get it up and going. So in an average month, I'm probably doing, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 crowns in a month, which isn't too bad. I mean, compared to private practice, or at least the way it wasn't too different than where I was.
Right.
But not every community health center is set up that way. So a lot of them will just set up basically. They'll say what they call their scope of service. If they've been established for a while, they'll have this scope of service. This is the term they use. And it means what are the services you're going to offer. Some of them only do offer things like extractions and fillings and some basic hygiene, maybe some scaling and replaning. But other places like where I work, we offer the whole gamut pretty much. I mean, other than removable, we're not doing removable, and I'm not sad about that. But.
No, that's actually a blessing.
But we do crowns, fillings, extractions. We do a lot of that stuff. So nice. I would say if you're going to look at a community health center in Pennsylvania, I mean, really look around, ask questions, get an idea of what they're really doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say also is if this person wants to get their skills up and improve on things, I mean, the military is an option. It's not for everybody. It may not seem like a great option, and it may not be a great option for everybody. But if you really want to knock out those student loans and at the same time maybe pick up some skills, the military does offer residency programs. They do offer specialty training while you're getting your loan repayment. Granted, it's some sacrifice of where you're going to live. There may be stretches where you're away from your family. So that's, again, not for everybody, but if you're really wanting to knock out some debt and get training and make some money at the same time, it's a good thing to look at.
Yeah, I think that's a good advice. There is going to be some sacrifice. You can't have, at least in my experience, you can't have exactly the right place to live with the exact right income that you want. You're gonna have to sacrifice something. I think living in this area, I probably sacrifice income. I know you can go to some places in like North Dakota and make $400,000 because there's just no dentists around. But I was kind of like our listener here, and I had just planned on coming back to this area because my family was here, and I like the area. This is where I grew up. So, maybe I pigeonholed myself a little bit, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to look around at things like a community health center and the military, things like that, because especially if you're married and you're kind of taking your family with you. So I don't think that would be such a bad idea. Personally, I never looked at it because I was hard-headed and just planned on coming back here and thought I'd find a practice to buy, and it worked out pretty well, but it didn't work out how I thought it would. So,
well, yeah. I think part of that is the reason why we started this podcast, because this guy here has given a lot more thought to the things that I did. I assumed that. Yeah. Well, I mean, we were taught that in school. Remember that we talked that this is the golden age of dentistry, and it didn't really matter where you went. You were just going to make money, and you're going to be able to pay off your debts and blah. So I didn't even worry about my debts in dental school. I just thought that I was going to make enough to pay it off and not have to worry about it. But boy, was I wrong. Mm-hmm. You really. I mean, this guy is doing good because he's thinking about it. And you have to nowadays, because with this kind of student loan debt, with this kind of purchase price you want on this practice, which we'll get into in a minute, I mean, you've got to know exactly what you're getting yourself into, because you can bury yourself in a hurry.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been there.
Yeah. And he's talking about learning the business of dentistry and things like that. I think that's great. I think, staying out of debt and not buying, we talked on our last podcast, not buying things you don't need. Don't buy $100,000 laser right out of school. Don't ever buy one. I don't know. Yeah. But, and I was thinking that when you get out of school, or even before you get out of school, talking to other dentists that have actually been there, and not talking to the salesmen who swear they're there for in your best interest, or the consultants and everybody who wants to sell you stuff. Talk to other dentists and see what they did to be successful. See what they did, and guys you trust, or guys and girls you trust. And I think advice like that is better. Guys like us, awesome guys like us that do a podcast.
Right, yeah. We'll give you the realistic perspective, right?
Yeah, we will, and it might break your heart a little bit, but that's what. Yeah, you're right, Troy. That's why we do this. So, what do you guys think about the lifestyle he's talking about? We were talking about this a little bit before the show. The home with vacations and things like that, putting into retirement. And then he's going to have student loans on top of that. What did you figure, Troy, the student loan would be on the $300,000 to $350,000?
That's probably right around. What did I have written down here? About $21,600 a year. So
okay, $1,800,
about $1,800 a month for a student loan repayment. That's amortized over 30. Yeah, about 5% at 30 years. So it's like a mortgage.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And then we figured a house payment, I think, would we say between about $425, the house payment would be about $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
Yep, $2,500. That's about $30,000 a year.
Yeah, so you're at $4,300 a month, and then on a practice that's $800 to $1 million, that's going to be real steep each month.
You're probably going to pay somewhere around $700,000 for the practice. And that's not the building. I mean, we're talking.
That's just paper. Yeah. That's just charts.
That's some goodwill, hoping the patients actually come back.
Yep. And that looks you'll be paying about $88,000 a year, probably for that.
Mama.
And that's because that's only amortized over 10 years.
10 years is about what you get a business loan for.
You can extend them a little bit, but a lot of them will start at 10 years.
That's
what mine was, yeah.
And not to get off the topic, or veer off in another direction, but I mean, that is something the listener asked about. It was, how realistic is it that I'm going to get loans for all this?
Yeah.
That's going to be a trick right now. Actually, I got some information on that. My brother-in-law's a banker, and also I've talked to one of the Henry Schein reps over in Boise who helps transition practices. And there are a lot of people coming out of school that the banks won't even look at now. That is a new thing. When I got out of school, I could have got a loan for $1 billion.
Yeah, same here. Sign your name.
They just said, here, how much do you want, basically.
Yeah.
When I bought my house was $129,000. I'm still living in it. And they would tell me that they thought I was crazy. They go, you could get a lot more money, and I'm like, yeah, but I got to pay my other debts off, And so, I didn't want to be house poor. And that's just me personally. But that's one thing you got to look at now. You probably have to have 2 years of experience before they'll even start looking at you. To get these kind of loans to this kind of number.
And there again, so if you're going to wait 2 years before you can get it, I mean, why not? And you're going to do public health, why not do the 2 years and get $50,000 for your trouble for your student loans?
I mean, it's true. An associateship making $150,000 or public health making $150,000 with some student loan repayment, like that seems like a great idea. And then you can have some tax returns showing that you actually have some income, because they're going to want to see those tax returns and see how much you made in the previous year. And if you've got a big fat zero there, it's not going to help you.
No.
Yeah, and so what did you say, Troy? About $88,000 a year for a practice at that price?
About $700,000, which we're calculating this. This is just a rough thing. If a practice is producing, it's off of a collection. So if it's collecting, the numbers we were trying to calculate was be off collecting. So if you're collecting $1 million, which is probably where you're going to have to be able to take home that $350.
Yeah.
So we're collecting $1 million. Production will probably at least be 1.5, and then you're looking at about a $700,000 practice. You're about 70% of previous year's collections is a ballpark on what you'll be paying for a practice. That of course is all negotiable with whoever's trying to sell. But so you're looking at right around $7,400 a month, $8,800 a year. Just to pay, that's just for your charts. Yeah.
So I figure student loans, house, and that's $11,600 so far a month. That's a lot of money.
It is.
I'm just doing some calculations here. So that's $139,000 a year for just those three dets.
Yeah. Then we got to tack on another $100,000 for tax.
Yes.
Don't forget taxes.
Yeah.
If you're making $300 to $350, you're going to be paying right around $100,000 in tax.
Yeah.
So like we were saying, if you wanted to take home $300 to $350, you're going to have to gross about $500 or so.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's not doable. I would just say it's going to be difficult, especially being new out of school. I mean, this might be 15 years down the line, 20 years down the line, and who knows what dentistry will be like then. I don't know.
We'll all be working
if there will be private practices. I just don't know. One option would be to self-finance from the seller, the selling dentist, but and that's great because the dentist would make some interest. But if he's retiring at 60 or 65 or whatever, he's probably going to want his $700,000 or whatever for that practice. So. You're looking at a house and the practice. You're going to be $1.5 million in debt as they hand you your degree.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that I found, and you guys probably found too, is the fact that when we got out of school, we pretty much thought that we were just going to be okay. And boy, I have had that debt. I mean, I built a building, I bought a practice, and I'm telling you what. I mean, we're 15 years out, and I'm still digging out of the hole.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
This stuff, it doesn't go away. These big numbers that we have here, I mean, you pretty much would have to live on ramen noodles and not do anything, which I haven't done. So you pretty much you would have to live very, very meagerly for a very, very long time to pay off this kind of debt.
Yeah. And at the same time be real passionate about dentistry and real aggressive in marketing and take some risks, have some good things go for you,
Yeah, I think investment gurus or financial planning gurus like Dave Ramsey, they recommend not taking on debt if you can avoid it. And like when we were in dental school, we were made to feel like we were just going to walk out of school and start making money. We might as well just buy a new car before we left school because we'd be making so much cash. But man, then you get out and you think, wait, we're not making quite as much as we thought. And like you said, Troy, they'd give you a ton of money. But what if you had taken and bought that $400,000 or $500,000 house right out? I mean, you'd still be having that payment now, but it would have been tough to make that. At least for me, it would have been tough to make that payment right out of school. That would have been. I didn't make that much right out of school. For the first.
Yeah, it still would have been bad because we talked before on our podcast. My income's going down right now. My income's not going up.
Yeah. Mine's the same way, and I don't know what it was about the first year or so out of school. I mean, my wife worked as a dental assistant. She made more money than I did. So it was humbling because I expected to be making a ton of money, and it all works out. But if you get yourself in a hole too early, it could be a big problem.
Yeah.
So, well, let's see. What else do we have to talk about with this email? I think we've covered like lifestyle and things like that. What kind of debt he's going to have. What other pointers or like little tidbits of advice would you give our listener? Do you guys have anything else?
Well, one thing that, like we were on the Dental Town podcast a while back. Yeah. And Howard Ferran's talking. We were talking about student loan debt and stuff like that. And he's talking about how students coming out with this kind of debt don't have an option to refer. Remember when he was talking about, that you're taking out your own wisdom teeth, you're doing your own molar endo, you're doing your own implants, you're doing your own everything. And I think that's great if you are qualified to do it and if you enjoy it, whatever. I mean, I placed implants for several years, and I've since decided not to because just for one reason or another, I just find that my surgeons and my periodontists do such a great job. I think they have better skills than I do on that. So that's why I want my patients to get taken care of better. But in a situation coming out of school, you might feel some pressure to do those. And if you're trying to do this kind of dollar amount in production, you're really going to have to think about that kind of stuff. You're going to have to not refer a whole lot of stuff. You're going to have to maybe do some stuff you don't want to do, which you have to weigh because then you're opening yourself up to more liability. Because if you get sued over an endo that goes bad, they're going to hold you to the endodontist standard. If you mess up a surgical extraction of a wisdom tooth, whatever, you're going to be held to the oral surgeon standard. So you have to be careful not to get pressured into doing things that you don't want to do, you don't feel comfortable to do, just because you're trying to make your payments on your huge loans and your student loans, your houses, your practice, all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking, Troy, like when we were getting out of dental school, or if I was getting out of dental school right now, I guess what I would consider is what is most important to you. Is it where you want to live? Is it that you want to make the most money? Is it that you want to have family nearby? So what was most important to you guys when you first got out of dental school? Because personally, to me, it was to move back, kind of to be around my family, be in the area where I grew up. But what about you guys? Marcus, let's start with you.
Yeah, that was really the same with me. My wife and I both decided, if we want our kids to grow up around their family, which we did, we need to probably live close to them, because if we're more than probably an hour and a half or 2 hours away, we're probably not going to see them more than once or twice a year. It's just how it was. So that was probably the big thing for us. And I was a little unrealistic. I mean, I thought, okay, I can go back there and I can do a startup practice in this saturated area. I'm gonna defy the odds. And I made it work for about 12 years before it all fell apart. But that whole time, I mean, I was scrapping and scraping. I never felt like I was really getting ahead. And there's a number of reasons we can get into for that. But anyway, I think for me, coming back and being close to family was what was most important to me. I probably, in hindsight, should have been more realistic about what kind of income and what kind of practice opportunities I should have pursued, given that I wanted to live where I live.
Yeah. What about you, Troy?
That was probably the main reason for coming back west because that's why I wanted to live closer to family. I didn't get as close as you guys. I'm still quite a distance away, and just like you said, Marcus, when you're not that close, you only see them 2 or 3 times a year. Even though we went to dental school in Wisconsin, my family lives in kind of south central Utah, so I have an 8-hour drive to get down there, and we just don't get down there as much as we normally would. So that was part of it, and then part of it was the reason I ended up here was the practice, and the numbers that they were generating and things like that just kind of fell into place for me. But yeah, I mean, definitely where you want to live has a big part of where you go and what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think being realistic about things, because I was the same as you, Marcus. I thought, I don't care that there's 1,000 dentists within one block. I'm going to go there and I'm going to make a ton of money. And it hits you hard when you find out that, hey, maybe I was a little bit wrong about that. And thinking about this listener talking about going to Virginia or Pennsylvania and wanting to make this much money, when the average dentist there is making, $150,000 to $200,000 less than he wants to make, there's a reason that those dentists are probably making or averaging that much. It's not that they don't want to make more. It's just that you get locked in. There's only a certain amount of patients, and insurances, they know they've got you. If there's that many patients or that many dentists around, they're not going to pay as much as they would if you were out in rural America.
That's
Somewhere,
true.
sorry, I'm getting all choked up.
That's very true.
Yep. That's the problem. That's the dilemma that we've gotten ourselves into in dentistry. We've talked about it over and over. Insurance companies will dictate how much you make. If you go to a place that you're heavy in PPO, you cannot really control your income. It's gotten to that point in dentistry. When the insurance company gives you a letter every year and says, "Hey, we're cutting our fees again," that money just comes off of your stuff. Your assistants get paid, your supply people get paid, and by the way, your supplies go up all the time. They don't say, "Oh, the poor dentist is not getting paid as much, so we're gonna cut." No, it's the dentist that's getting hacked at this deal. So if you can find a place in Pennsylvania, Virginia that doesn't have a high insurance area, then that might be a place to look at.
Yeah, that might be. And I was wondering about looking at the average income of the residents. If you went to, I don't know, somewhere in California, San Francisco or something like that, the average income is going to be a lot higher. It's going to cost you more to live there, but you might make a little bit more than you would if you were where we are in Utah and Idaho. So that could be a thing. But, the insurances, they do have a lot to do with all of this. One thing that my wife and I did when I was out of school a couple of years, but we met with a financial planner who we had gotten a referral from another dentist that had good luck with him for the last 20 or 30 years. And we sat down and told him, our income and everything like that when we wanted to retire. And they planned out, how much we need to save each month, how much we could live off of. And they at least make it realistic that, you might not be able to put $1,000 into retirement right now, but you could put maybe $200 into a retirement account, and then that starts adding up over time. And they actually can kind of guide you. And if you get a good one, I think they will be honest with you and realistic. I know, I told mine that I want to retire at 57, or no, I said I want to retire at 52, and they said, no, you're not going to do that. So I had to adjust things, and, I still would like to retire.
That would be next year, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be next year for you.
You're getting up there.
I've got 10 good years left before I hit that. But so that would be one thing. But there's so many people that make money off of dentists now. So many salesmen and consultants and people that want to manage your practice and think. You just have to be careful with who you get in bed with. Maybe that's a bad way to put it, but you know what I mean.
Yes,
be careful who you get in bed with also. But it's just something to look out for. Talk to people you trust. Get good advice. Don't just let the guy that just walks in your front door, tell you what he thinks you should do. Get some good advice. But well, guys, what else do you have to offer tonight?
I don't want to sound negative, because sometimes we always talk after our podcasts about sometimes we're coming off negative, but we want to be kind of real and not let anybody get these expectations that can't be achieved. That's kind of why we've done this podcast and stuff. It's just from our experience of what we've had, what we've done. All of us have been out 15 years now, and it's a different world from when we got out even to now. It's really difficult to make the kind of money I think that people were making back before we got out of school, and it's a different world. corporate dentistry is the wave of the future, and with this kind of debt, it's going to be really, really hard, I see, in the future for people to own practices and be solo practitioners like we all dreamed of becoming.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and getting out and taking on a lot of debt, that can cause you to lose a lot of sleep at night. So,
It does.
It does. It does. It still
do.
does. It does. I mean, nowadays, taking a job at, the public health thing, I mean, that might be a great way to go and look around. You don't have to tie yourself to the area you do the public health service in. Guys go from our class, like Oregon, places like that, and, they seem to have a good experience and then went somewhere else after. But at least to get your speed up, get some experience, and see if you really like dentistry or not.
Yeah, that's important.
Hopefully you do by now.
Maybe a little late after you're out of school.
Maybe a little bit late after you're $300,000 in debt from dental. Man, that is such a chunk of money.
Yeah.
Yes,
Man.
it is.
I thought we were far in debt after we got out of school, but well, yeah, this has been, and I really enjoyed this email because at least this listener is thinking through things, because he thought about 50 steps past where I thought in dental school. I was going to buy a practice and be my own boss and la la la, and it worked out, but we've all had some stressful times and made some bad decisions and had some regrets. So that's why we do this podcast, to hopefully help people minimize those regrets.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing, is he is thinking about it. That's the students nowadays have to consider this stuff. They kind of, I don't know, I felt kind of like I was kind of brainwashed, and I don't know if you guys felt that way. It just felt like, they never let you worry about this stuff. You're like, what are you guys worried about this? You guys are going to make plenty of cash to pay this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. You guys need to really, really think about this. I mean, we're talking huge numbers here. I mean, we're talking big, big numbers. When you can have a student loan, a house, and a practice, and be well over $1 million in debt, that's insane.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I know I'm there. I've been paying off this kind of debt for 15 years, and I've got 2 more years to go. And then I can hopefully start stashing tons of money into retirement. Actually, let's go to that real quick before we close. Do you guys mind?
This
is the dilemma that I've always had: is where do I spend my dollars? Do I take and just put money in retirement, or do I use it to pay off debt? And I'm doing a hybrid. I'm putting some into retirement and some against debt. And basically, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's what I'm doing. What do you guys think?
Well, yeah, I think you want to get some into retirement because you get compounding interest, and you're gonna you've got to have some time. I mean, what did they say? If you start putting money into retirement for the first 10 years after graduation and never put it in again, any more money in again, you'll have more money by the time you retire in 30 years than the person that waits 10 years to put it in and then puts money in for the next 20 years until retirement.
Exactly.
So you got to get some in, but the debt will kill you. You can't keep paying interest for 30 years on something if you can pay it over just 20. So yeah, I think that's that's what I do too. I'm trying to get some debt paid down, but I do pretty good with my retirement and putting some in, and I hope I can retire someday. But man, that debt will kill you. So if you take on a bunch of debt right from the get-go, that really limits your ability to save any money.
Yeah, it's very true.
Because if you have a situation where you're waiting to pay off all of your loans, your business loan is probably going to be amortized 10 years. Your mortgage, of course, is over 30 years. Student loan, depending on how you do it, they'll amortize that out for 30 years. If you wait for that long to put into retirement, you're going to never, ever
You're
be
never
able to retire.
Yeah.
Right.
You're just never going to be able to take advantage of that compounding interest. So what you're going to have to do is just manage the amount of money you can put into retirement. I mean, it's not a ton. I mean, I can't put a ton of money in there quite yet. 2 years, I'm hoping, but then I'm going to have to start dumping tons in because I'm way behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, you're already 65, so...
I'll be 66 this year, yes.
No, Troy's still a spring chicken. But it's true, though. You got to decide. And that's, like, I don't know that I really thought that. I had some I think before college, or when I was in college, I started doing like a Roth IRA. And so I had some when I got out of dental school, some retirement started. But then I met with the financial planner, like I said, and they got a pretty good plan together. So, yeah, they could at least help you pay down some debt while getting some savings. But man, taking on extra debt is tough. And I think if you could get out of school and start working and making some money and not have the practice debt right away, I mean, that'd give you a good chance to make some money and get some student loan debt paid down, or just get things up and going.
Yeah, get some confidence and figure out what you really want. And, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. It's kind of really a tough thing to answer for everybody. Everybody has their own, desires and needs and the reasons why they went into dentistry and all that. Mm-hmm. But it seems to me like the common thread is most people want to be an entrepreneur. Most people want to own their own practice. They want to be able to they want to be able to control where they live. But like we're talking nowadays, you really need to rethink that kind of mentality and possibly say, I'm going to have to live somewhere that maybe not as desirable because there's more income, or work in a healthcare facility or a lower income health community health, or military, or something along these lines. It just makes that debt way more manageable to do that, and I think we're going to see a lot more people getting into those situations.
Yeah, I think so. And I think one thing that I did a little bit of when I was first out of school, I had a practice, but I also worked at another practice for another dentist. And, that could be an option for some new dentists too, is to get a day or two at several practices, get some experience in some different practice settings and see what you actually like. Because, the three of us, we work, Monday to Thursday. I think we all three work that. And, you could add a Friday, and that adds a lot of income if you were willing to work Fridays, because there's not a lot of dentists that are open on Fridays, at least in my area. So, if you can find an office that's open Fridays, you can make some extra income doing that too. So
it's always the guys fresh out of school that are working Fridays.
Yeah, it is.
Because by the time you've worked Fridays, Monday through Friday for 5 years, you're about ready to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Unless you're Howard Ferran, he goes in on Saturdays to shuck wisdom teeth. He loves it. And if you're that kind of guy, then more power to you. I'm not that kind of guy.
No, but that might be the way to get that income up to a $500,000 gross, is doing stuff like that. I don't know.
Sneaking outside the box and being willing to do crazy stuff.
But part of the reason we go into dentistry, what is one of the reasons we went into dentistry, guys? Lifestyle. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So you don't have to kill you don't have to kill yourself to work, but sometimes I worked 5 days a week for the first 5 years of practice, and then I started getting burnout. I started going, it takes a toll on you. It's a mental toll. It's not a physical toll, but it'll take a mental toll on you, talking to all them people.
But it will take a physical toll eventually too. I mean, but it does take a mental, emotional toll. Yeah, for sure.
It does. And that's another podcast we can do. Let's jot that one down.
Let's write that down. I like that.
But
it's being blown tonight.
It's a good profession for as far as days worked, unless you're one of those guys that loves to work 6 days a week. I prefer to just be at home at night with my family and spend weekends with my family. I have no desire to work Fridays. That's just me. No way. Saturdays, no.
Monday to Thursday, no.
Monday through Wednesday would be nice.
How do we get that
just
scheduled?
Monday. Just Monday.
Maybe
Monday.
Okay, half day Monday.
Yes, I know you're talking.
Right. How's that?
I like that.
But it used to be you could make some good money in dentistry and actually work lower hours. But I'm pretty sure I take a hit in the amount of money I make because I take Fridays off. But that's what we've discussed this in the past. The benefit versus the how much money is it worth to you to be at home with your family. And right now, my being off Fridays outweighs any money I would make on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the situation that I'm in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that's one thing you would sacrifice a little extra money, but the benefit is you spend more time with your family. So there will be a balancing act, I would say, with all of this. Yeah. All of this probably won't come to fruition, but man, if this guy could figure out how to do this, that would be amazing.
You should, if you figure this out, write a book on how you did it, and you'd be pretty well off. Then you could just have a track that other people can follow.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, there you go. And then you can remember us as your influence.
There you go.
All right. Well, should we put a bow on this baby?
Let's do it.
Wrap it up. You guys have anything else to add?
No, a lot of good information. I was really liked this email. I'm glad this guy's thinking ahead.
Yeah. If anybody else has an email, like this or something, some other thoughts or questions, this is what we really enjoy doing. That gives us some stuff to talk about. So, yeah, hit us up. Marcus, why don't you tell everybody where they can find us and get in touch with us?
All right. You can find us on Facebook, Dental Realist. We're also on Twitter, at Dental Realist. We have a website, dentalrealist.com. You can find us on there. Send us emails to dentalrealist@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and hear your questions, any things that you want to talk about. We also have a couple of books, So You Want to Be a Dentist and So Now You're a Dentist. Both are available in digital format. You can find them where fine books are sold.
Very
so
fine books, yes.
They are fine books. I mean, this listener, he read the book.
Yeah.
We've
had a lot of comments on the book, and
yeah,
at least jogs people's thought process. Maybe hopefully that what helped him start thinking of this.
Yeah,
stuff.
And it feels good in your hand. It feels good just to have that book in your hand.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, we're really appreciative of this email, and thanks for everybody listening tonight. And we will see you next time. Talk to you next time, I guess, on the Dental Realist podcast. Thanks.